Wow. I mean, just wow. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions home theater update. This is number 3, and I've actually had to record this 3 times now because something kept happening, and so I decided I just need to re-record it. But lots of good things actually, so that's really cool. So as you can tell from the title, I have 3 things that I wanted to talk about. The first one is in regards to the MRX line and also the AVM line from Anthem. The Arc Genesis being out of beta finally. I happened to wanted to go look and check on the manual, something that I was looking up. I think it was in regards to the streaming, because I'm still trying to figure out how that works on the Anthem. I didn't actually find anything on that, so I'll have to look a little bit further into that. If anybody knows how that works, let me know in the comments below. But when I went to go look, I went to the download section, and they had a note saying that Arc Genesis was no longer in beta for the new products, and you can now use the regular Arc Genesis. And so it went from being on 1.3.19 to 1.3.25. As far as the version that you were using. And I looked at the changelog to see what had changed after I downloaded it. And it mentioned that it had initial support for the MRX 1140, 740, 540, and then AVM ones. And so I kind of wondered that that's kind of interesting that they used initial support. So that makes me wonder if there's going to be other things that are going to be coming down the line, more improvement into that. But I thought that was kind of an interesting use of the words. It also showed that it supported the new microphones that come with the system. And that made me wonder, it's like, well, I wonder if they were using, I guess, the old microphones in the beta, or maybe they were using the new microphones in the beta. But I also thought that was interesting. One thing that also caught my eye was the improved handling of equalization at the max EQ and the minimum EQ frequencies, which I'll kind of touch on that a little bit later here when I reran it. They also showed that they fixed some bugs and issues, which I mentioned when I ran it on mine. I had that issue where, the Atmos speakers would not work, or the subs wouldn't work, and I had to turn it off and turn it back on, and sometimes it wouldn't save the speaker settings and stuff like that. So they must have fixed all of that, because I was able to run it without any issues. It ran perfectly the first time, and I also had somebody had commented on the other video saying that they were kind of waiting until all of the bugs got fixed before they would even consider purchasing it, or had run into some issues when they ran it. So I posted a comment on there to let them know that it came out, and I did have somebody say that they were able to run it and it ran perfectly. So that was good to hear that other people are having the same experience now with it being out of beta. So in regards to running Arc Genesis after this download, it ran perfectly. I had no issues. I actually had 3 different measurements that I told it to make. The first one was I called it movies, and it was all the channels, so all the front, back, center, and then the Dolby plus the 2 subs. And then I did a second measurement, which was just the fronts and the subwoofers. And then I did a third one that was just the fronts. Just kind of wanted to test a couple of different things out to see how everything sounded. That thing that I mentioned in regards to the changelog about improving the handling of equalization of the minimum and max frequencies, I think is true, because it sounded even smoother than what it did before. Before it sounded really great, but when I ran it this time, it actually sounded smoother. The thing that I mentioned about in the last video in regards to the bass not feeling quite there, well, it improved and it sounded much better. There's still certain things where it's still kind of lacking. I do especially notice it in music. Things like the kick drum doesn't have that punch. And like I said, I think it's still, more in regards to my subwoofers versus the actual system itself, because it feels like it could be there, but it just doesn't quite get there. The one thing I did try before all this stuff happened, and which is why I had to re-record these videos, was I was going to mention that I did try turning up the subs, the gain on the back of the subs a little bit more to kind of help increase it. But then it felt out of balance. Like, yeah, the things that I was looking for started to come up, although they were still not quite there. But then the other stuff that, was coming out really well was even more in your face kind of thing. So, and yeah, it started feeling unbalanced and not sounding right. When I reran this, I start off with being super loud, and then it tells you to kind of come down and on the volume, and I was able to get them pretty much even when it started out. And like I said, it sounded really good. The one thing I've noticed was in the previous version of the setup that I ran, I was able to get up to -20 before it was like, ooh, that's starting to get really loud and kind of, too loud for, at least for my listening. And this time when I reran it, since everything felt to be a lot more even, I could actually turn it up louder, and actually went up to -15, and I was still feeling like, wow, this sounds really good. It's like it sounds great. And I think that's also what helped the bass sounding better, even though I didn't have to turn it up even more on the subs. The other thing I tried to do, because I'm kind of new to the YouTube thing as far as like copyright and what you can and can't do. I know there's certain things that, for sure you can't do, but I wanted to see if there was a way for me to get like some sort of sample recording, what it sounds like. And unfortunately with, YouTube and, with the microphones that I have, it wasn't going to be, what it feels like in real life. But the one thought that I had is because obviously my camera's microphone would not pick it up very well. I thought, hey, I wonder if this Art Genesis microphone is good enough for the receiver. I wonder how good it would do with recording. So I put it in my main listening position, which would be position 1 if you're running Art Genesis, and I recorded a couple of trailers of the movies that I'm looking forward to, the Godzilla vs. Kong, Justice League, and then Mortal Kombat. I uploaded that as a separate video just in case, if copyright take it down or something. I'll link to it in the info cards, I think, which are over here, and in the description as well. I also tried a couple of different songs, which I know those are even harder to do, so I also did a separate one, and I only did like, a couple of seconds, because I just want to show and share a sample. The one thing that I did notice is I'm assuming that Art Genesis, knows the microphone and compensates the way that it's tuned or whatever. But when I recorded it, I used Adobe Audition to record it. It sounded, when I was listening it to myself, the bass sounded a little bit more than what it actually sounded in person. So the only thing I did after I recorded it was to normalize the audio to -3 dB, and that's all I did. Those will be in, like I said, in the info cards and the links down below. The other thing I wanted to talk about was overheating. Somebody had mentioned in the comments of the previous video, asking, hey, does it get really hot? Because it looks like the fan on the back is kind of small. And to be honest, I've never actually checked even my previous Pioneer receiver. I never really checked it to see if it overheated. As I've shown in previous video, the receiver is inside a media cabinet, so it's already kind of enclosed, but there's some sort of airflow back there. Since I hadn't done that before, I'm like, well, you know what, I have one of those infrared thermometers because of all the stuff that's been happening, so kind of handy to keep it on hand just in case. But it has the option of switching over to surface temp instead of just body temperature. So what I did was first I checked to see what our house was set to, which it was like 72 degrees, and our thermometer was set to 70. I then went and checked the temperature on the receiver at the starting point before I even turned it on, and it showed, I kind of measured like in the middle of the receiver and then in the top 2 corners, the left and right corners, and it started out at like 69 degrees in the middle and 69 at the edges as well. So what I did was I played Ready Player One all the way through, and it was averaging, I checked with my phone to see what the dBs were, and it was averaging around 76 with some peaks in the 90s. And I used kind of like the racine to kind of check the levels at that point, because I know that that's a pretty loud scene. So I let that play, which I think is like a 2.5 hour movie, and I went to check it after that was done, and in the middle it was like at 108, and then around the corner corners, it was just a little bit less. I'll show the video of what that was. I could touch it with my hand for sure. It didn't feel like, oh, you know, that's really hot. It, you know, felt warm for sure, but I could touch it with my hand and it wasn't that big of an issue. And then I let it kind of rest for 10 minutes while it was still on. I wasn't playing anything, but the receiver was still on, and I checked it again, and then it was averaging around like 92, 93, so just after 10 minutes. Like I said, I never tested that before, so I wasn't sure if that was high. I replied back to the person that commented or had asked the question, and they felt like it was kind of high, and so they wondered if Anthem, you know, had any data or any information as to what that temperature, you know, where that fell. So I did email this morning Anthem to, you know, say, hey, you know, I had this question, here's what I did, you know, is that too hot or what have you. Since I did that today, they haven't replied back yet, but I'll let everyone know what I hear back in regards to that. Let me know in the comments below if you feel like that's pretty high as well. Like I said, it's not something I've ever tested. I know that for electronics in general, heat is one of the worst things or one of the biggest culprits of reducing the life of anything that's electronic. Heat is just not a good thing. So if it is, then maybe I need to look at something to kind of have more airflow back there, especially for when I'm running movies and stuff. I'll actually try to check and see what it's like after watching Justice League, because I've heard that that's like a 4-hour movie, so it'll be interesting to see what the temperature is on that after running that for 4 hours. Because most of the time for me, I don't, you know, we tend to watch like movies or things like that maybe on the weekends, so I don't necessarily have it playing, you know, very loudly for a very long time. When my wife watches TV, she actually doesn't even turn on the receiver. She just, you know, listens to the audio through the television. She doesn't even use it regularly and things like that. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments below in regards to that. The last thing I wanted to touch on is where's the bass? I had mentioned in the previous video that, you know, I love the way that the bass sounds, but it just feels like there's, you know, something missing. I had tried to increase the bass, or the gain, sorry, on the subwoofers, because I had mentioned that I had looked into it a little bit more, and that was one of the suggestions that kept coming up is after running room correction, you know, bump it up a couple of dB to kind of increase that sound. And it did help with getting that punchiness a little bit more, but it started to offset the stuff that, you know, came out really well, and it just started to sound unbalanced, and it was just a little too overpowering for some sections. So I turned it back down because it just wasn't sounding right. And like I mentioned before, in regards to the Arc Genesis now being out of beta, and I think it had something to do with the equalization of the minimum and max frequencies, because it sounded even better. Like the bass is much more present. It's still lacking in some areas, like when Kong is, you know, jumping down in Ready Player One on that race scene. There's still like, it's like not there, not quite there. Like it should feel a lot stronger. I also noticed it in music in regards to like a kick drum, that, you know, that punchiness that you're supposed to feel from a kick drum isn't there. And I know that that's more due to the sub, but it did sound much better. And I tried to record a couple of samples, like I said, and hopefully maybe you'll be able to hear what I'm talking about in regards to that, especially for the music ones. So one of the other reasons why I'm having to re-record this is because originally I was going to ask in this video, hey, you know, what do you guys suggest as far as subwoofers? Because I do freelance stuff, which brings in a little extra money besides my normal job and stuff like that. And after, you know, talking to my wife, she's like, you know, yeah, you can go ahead and save that up and get the subwoofer. So it was going to take a little time for me to do that. So I was starting to do some research, and I actually had some comments from other people suggesting other subwoofers, like, you know, Shoe Research, Rhythmic, and then SVS kept coming up a lot. And even in the research that I was doing, SVS was coming up quite a bit. And I did hear that, you know, SVS for the price, you can get some subs that are even more powerful and better sounding. Although SVS has their customer service and their 5-year warranty and all that good stuff. And they've been doing these for a really long time, and they sell a lot of them. And, you know, I've heard lots of good things. That's, yes, there's stuff out there that may be a lot better, but SVS is also no slouch as well. I was, you know, taking a look and checking out some stuff, and then I happened to run across something on Amazon the other day that was just too good to pass up. And so I spoke to my wife, like, hey, you know, I'm saving up the money. I already have some money saved up, but this is a really good deal, and I don't think it'll last long. And so she's like, you know what, it's, you know, our anniversary is coming up in April. Consider this your anniversary gift. So thank you so much to my awesome wife for letting me get these. I think they're gonna be a definite improvement, and I'm looking forward to hearing how they sound and sharing that with you, but I'm gonna leave that for the next video. I ordered them, and what was it, Friday, I think Friday the 5th, and they're not supposed to come in until the 12th, which is in a couple of days. Today's the 8th, so it'll be at the end of this week, and I'm looking forward to getting those and then sharing some more information about that. So that's all that I have for this video. Would definitely appreciate a like, of course, on the video. If there's any questions or comments, you know, make sure to leave them down below. I'll try to answer them the best that I can. And would definitely appreciate a subscribe. I've actually been really blown away as to the amount of subscribers that I've gotten in just from the last couple of videos in regards to the home theater. So it's cool to see that there's a lot of home theater enthusiasts out there that are crazy about it as much as I am, probably. Thank you guys for subscribing, and definitely would appreciate you guys, if you're new to the channel, to subscribe as well and hit that notification bell so you'll know when the next one drops. And until then, I hope you have a good one.